Hey everyone, it's Blake. Welcome in to episode number 7 of our WWF Invasion 2001 save in TEW9. This is Raw is War for May 21st, 2001, the go-home edition before Judgment Day, our first pay-per-view of the save. And I always say sometimes it can take our first pay-per-view card a little while to come together. We don't really have a lot of matches on it just yet, but as you'll see, it fills out this week on Raw and SmackDown right before the show. Normally, if you've watched previous saves, we like to build matches a bit in advance, but just the way it works here, as we want to kind of get a little bit of backstory on what the state of the things are heading into Judgment Day. But we start things off on this week's edition of Raw. It is Steve Austin and Kurt Angle in the back, and it is Kurt Angle just kind of doing what he usually does. He's talking Steve Austin's head off here, as Angle is telling Austin, Steve, we're in my hometown. We're in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. And Angle says, have you seen all the signs out there? Everyone talking about their Olympic hero, me, Kurt Angle. And Angle's talking about how well they work as a team. Look at what they did on SmackDown to The Undertaker, to Kane, to Chris Jericho. And Angle's just as high as you can be here in terms of his happiness with what happened on SmackDown. Austin just says, Kurt, you got to stop talking for a second. I'm waiting for Vince McMahon. I got some things I've got to discuss based on what happened on SmackDown. And so Angle just continues on, and Austin's like, stop, Kurt, stop. Before I know it, you'll be talking about Too Cool or some other nonsense. I'm waiting for Vince McMahon. And so Austin is still waiting, and Angle's just sitting there. These two are just kind of silent as Austin just looking over at Angle. Angle just trying to stay silent. And here comes Vince McMahon. But it's not Vince by himself. It's Vince with Eric Bischoff. And also, I forgot to put William Regal on here, but Regal comes in as well. So Vince coming in with Bischoff and Regal here. And Austin giving Eric Bischoff a look, as he always does. And Vince just says, guys, we need to head to the ring. We have some business to discuss. And he says, Mr. Regal, I would like you to lead the way, please, because you know that we have some things we have to take care of here, in the ring. And so Vince is telling them to head that way. Bischoff kind of breaks the ice here and tells Kurt, I've seen all the signs out there. All these people love you in your hometown of Pittsburgh. And Angle, lighting up again, right? We've come a long way, the friendship between Kurt Angle and Eric Bischoff, after Angle showed Eric Bischoff his gold medals. And so they're, Angle's talking about, once again, with Bischoff, they walk out. So they're following behind Regal. That leaves Austin and Vince, and that is where we see Austin say, Vince, what the hell are you doing bringing Eric Bischoff back? And Vince is like, Steve, we talked about this. This is just about WCW. And Austin says, listen, I listened to you last week. I found the old Stone Cold. That's what you wanted me to do. And I went out there and I whooped ass with The Undertaker, Kane, and Chris Jericho. And Austin says, we got to be on the same page here. We're a team. And Vince says, Steve, we are a team. I'm just handling some other business with WCW right now. And Austin says, all right, I'll let you do that under one condition. And Vince says, what? And Austin says, you let me go out there tonight when we all go to the ring. I get to hit Eric Bischoff with a Stone Cold Stunner. And Vince just says, Steve, I cannot let you do that. And Austin says, just one. Boom, wham, on his ass, is what Austin says. Vince is like, Steve, I cannot let you hit Eric Bischoff with a Stone Cold Stunner just yet. And Steve just says, all right, I'll take your word for it. But you better watch out. If he looks at me the wrong way, I'm going to hit him with a stunner. So Austin's still, not too happy about this Bischoff thing. But Vince says, Steve, it'll all be okay. I need you to come to the ring with me, but I need you to make sure you bring all of your championships. And that kind of gives Austin a little bit of a look here as Vince walks out and says, come on, Steve, we've got to go with security to make our way to the ring. So Austin grabs all of his championships, and now they're headed to the ring, 81 for this one. I know we got a lot of stuff on this episode, but it's a pretty talk-heavy episode because we got to get some storyline stuff in motion. So, all right, so they head to the ring, and again, there's a lot going on here, but don't worry about this half just yet. We're just going to focus on this half to start with. So we go out to the ring. We got Vince. We got Austin. We got Angle. We got Bischoff. We got Regal. So Vince says they have two big updates. And he says for the first, he needs to hand the microphone to William Regal. And so Regal says, we are here in the hometown of Kurt Angle, and Mr. McMahon has given me the opportunity to reward your Olympic hero, for all his hard work in recent weeks. And therefore, Regal turns to Steve Austin and says, Steve, I would like you to hand me that WWF Tag Team Championship belt on your shoulder. And Austin's looking at Vince like, wait a second, what are you talking about? And Austin's got his WWF title. He's got the 2 titles. He's holding them tight. And Vince just says, Steve, it's okay. Hand him the title. Hand him the title. And so Austin looks over at Angle, and then he's looking at Bischoff, still giving Bischoff a stare. And that is when Regal says, and Mr. McMahon has decided that, Kurt, your reward is that you are now one half of the WWF Tag Team Champions. And so Angle he bursts almost into tears here. Angle is as happy as can be. Bischoff is standing there just giving a little golf clap. Austin sees Bischoff clapping, and he just gives him a death stare. And Kurt Angle grabs the WWF title, WWF Tag Team Championship, and puts it around his waist. Again, as happy as you can imagine Kurt Angle being here, he is now a tag team champion with Steve Austin replacing Triple H. Austin's pissed. Vince is trying to talk Austin down. And Vince just says, Steve, it'll be okay. But now, Steve and everyone else, it's pretty clear, isn't it? That we have all the power, Vince says. I have the power of having the top champions in the WWF. I've got the WWF champion, Stone Cold Steve Austin. I've got the tag team champion, Stone Cold and Kurt Angle. Vince says, and don't worry, I've got a plan in place to get that Intercontinental Championship away from that big red monster, Kane. But Vince says, we have all the power. And you see all the security. You see the police officers out here as well. They are surrounding us because they must protect the most powerful people in sports entertainment, the most important figures. And as Vince continues, here comes The Undertaker, Kane, and Chris Jericho. They make their way out, and now we see Austin, Angle, and Regal. Again, I don't know why I didn't put Regal in here, but you kind of have them sort of standing there. The police and security are all between them. And so Taker, Kane, and Jericho are seeing this. They try to charge towards the ring. Well, what happens, right? The security and police are able to kind of hold them back momentarily, and then Vince is like, no, do not let them through. Vince says, put the cuffs on them. And so we start getting some of the police and the security. They're putting the handcuffs on The Undertaker, Kane, and Chris Jericho to not allow them into the ring. Austin and Angle are sitting there ready for a fight, but they can't get into the ring. And so, again, you kind of have Regal and Austin and Angle laughing at him as security is locking on the handcuffs and all this other stuff. Vince asking him to be hauled away. So they do get hauled away. The Undertaker, Kane, and Chris Jericho are out of there. And Vince just says, that'll teach anybody that you don't have the power that we do. I just said we have all the power, and I am about to give Eric Bischoff an opportunity to tell you exactly why and what we have in store for Shane McMahon, the progress that we've made with WCW. Eric, the floor is yours. And so Vince hands over the microphone to Eric Bischoff, 92 for this one. But before we can hear anything from Eric Bischoff, he's interrupted by the voice of Paul Heyman. Now, we know Heyman walked out of Raw a week ago after Vince McMahon and Eric Bischoff were in the ring. Heyman was not on SmackDown, replaced by Taz, and now we hear the voice of Paul Heyman. We realize it's coming from way up in the crowd. So this gets an 85 here for this one. So Heyman interrupts, and he says, no. I am not going to listen to Eric Bischoff speak. No one else should listen to Eric Bischoff speak and believe anything coming out of his mouth. Heyman says, I'm sick of this. I'm not going to sit back and watch this charade anymore. We might be in Pittsburgh, but we're just down the road from Philadelphia, the place that ECW built. And Heyman says, you better believe I'm not going to sit here and watch Vince McMahon and Eric Bischoff in the same ring act like everything is okay. And Heyman just says, all of you, look at yourselves. I don't care, Vince. Cut my microphone. Fire me. I don't care. I appreciate all the help, but I wouldn't trust you with my biggest enemy. And I also don't trust what you're actually up to. Heyman says, look at yourselves. All of you. Vince, Steve Austin. Steve, you came to ECW because of what Eric Bischoff did to you. and you're standing there right in the ring. You may be upset, but what are you doing about it? And Heyman says, why don't you give Eric Bischoff a Stone Cold Stunner right now? And when he says that, the fans cheer, right? They want to see Austin give Bischoff the Stunner. But Vince is just looking at Steve saying, Steve, no, do not listen to him. And Vince is trying to say, cut his mic. But the mic's not being cut. And so Heyman keeps going on. He says, Kurt Angle, you came to the ECW one time, and you ran away with your tail tucked between your legs because you were too scared of the Extreme. These people don't think you're an Olympic hero. They think you're an Olympic jackass who ran away from the one big challenge that you had after winning the gold medal. And Heyman says, you're nothing more than Steve Austin and Vince McMahon's lackey right now. And then Heyman looks at Bischoff and says, don't even get me started on all the things I have to say about you, Eric Bischoff. But then Heyman goes back to Vince, and he says, Vince, it's clear. All you're doing is parading Eric Bischoff around like a trophy. This has nothing to do with WCW. You've already beaten WCW, but you're bringing Eric Bischoff back to parade him around like a trophy. You want everyone to see that you won. You won the war, Vince, and you want everyone to know it week after week after week on your program. You want everyone to know. And yet Eric Bischoff keeps going along with it, Vince. Why? Why do you think that is? Do you really think you can trust Eric Bischoff? And Heyman continuing to poke. And everyone's kind of looking at each other now. Vince and Austin and Angle and Bischoff, as Heyman says all these things, but Heyman just says, don't worry, guys, I'm done. Vince is going to have my microphone cut any second. But maybe, Vince, you should wonder, why has it not been cut yet? Is there someone back there who actually thinks what I'm saying is true? Everyone knows that what you're seeing right now is not what it seems. This is all about Vince McMahon's ego. It's all about Eric Bischoff being up to something. And it's all about Steve Austin not actually being the old Stone Cold. And Heyman just keeps going and says, so I will leave you with this. I know I will no longer have a job with the WWF after this, but don't worry. My guys will be watching for all of you. So Heyman drops the microphone. He's out of there. Paul Heyman just went off on all of these guys. And that is kind of your story here. As Vince is left furious at Heyman, Bischoff is standing there. Austin's looking around. Angle's pissed off. It's his hometown. A lot coming out of this one. And so I know this all stuff, again, is kind of a longer-ish segments here to start the show, but we're setting a tone here for what's to come. And so everyone starts to exit. So Heyman's out of there. Vince exits. Steve Austin exits. Kurt Angle exits. Eric Bischoff exits. They're all walking their way out. Everyone kind of looking around. Everyone not very happy with what Heyman just had to say. But as we do that, we get to the first match. And it's notable that as these guys are leaving, the next two competitors come out. And it's going to be the Hardcore Championship match we have scheduled. Rhino versus Spike Dudley. And Vince is giving both of them a look. As he walks away, he kind of just looks back at him. And he's like, wait a second. Rhino, Spike Dudley. What's the connection there between those two? 85 here for this segment. Maybe Vince will put it together at some point. All right. So we do get to the Hardcore Championship match. It is Rhino getting the win over Spike Dudley to retain the championship after we get some interference from Albert. We know we've had the stuff going on between XFactor and the Dudley boys. And so that's kind of your setup here, as it is Albert interfering to cost Spike Dudley the opportunity to win the Hardcore title. Rhino's still the champ. 48 for this one, not a lot. I mean, I didn't expect much, but that's kind of your setup here with that. So after the match, what happens? Well, we go backstage. They're back because this is kind of the big story, right? So backstage, Vince, Bischoff, and security, of course, are there. They're going to leave the arena, and Austin and Angle are following them, and Vince just says, we're out of here. I'm not waiting around. I don't like what Paul Heyman had to say. I'm going to have him arrested too, just like I did the Undertaker, Kane, and Chris Jericho. And Vince says, guys, I will leave it to you. I know we have a plan, but I need to leave here. I don't like my security situation right now or Eric Bischoff's security. There's too much at stake. with WCW, we're going to leave now. I don't like what that Heyman had to say here. We're getting the hell out of Pennsylvania, is what Vince says. So they have some of the security with them, and before they can leave, Vince and Bischoff are in the parking lot. They're getting ready to head out. Angle walks up to Eric Bischoff and gives him a hug and says, Eric, I will be thinking about your safety. As Angle says that to Bischoff. But then Austin's just looking and shaking his head at Kurt Angle. And then Angle goes over and gives Vince McMahon a big hug. So he's giving Bischoff a hug. He gives Vince a big hug. And that is when Austin just shoves Angle out of the way. And Angle is sitting there being pushed down by Stone Cold Steve Austin, the tag team champions. And then Austin walks up and gives Vince a hug and pats him on the back. And then Vince is like, guys, I don't have time for this. We've got to get out of here. Vince and Bischoff get in the limo, and they're out of there with that. So interesting between the dueling hugs here from Austin and Angle with Vince and Bischoff. So 88 here for the segment. But we're still not done because we got more. We're setting up a lot on this show, again, as I said. But we needed to because we got a lot to get in before Judgment Day. So Austin's there, and finally I remember to put William Regal in here. I don't know why. This is just like one of those things in this show where I don't know why I did not put him in these segments, but it really wasn't to even prevent like the rating from going down. I just simply forgot, even though he's part of some of these as a bigger story. So Regal walks up. So, of course, Angle and Austin are there with Vince. Regal's still kind of, in the background here, but now he's with them. And so as these three turn around, realizing, okay, they're by themselves, Vince and Bischoff have left here, they turn around, and here comes Rikishi. So Rikishi is there, and he's walking up to these three, and they're trying to intimidate him, but Rikishi is by himself. He's, Angle's like, what are you going to do about it, huh? It's 3-on-1. And he's like, what do you have to say to us? And Rikishi just says, Kurt, I have nothing to say to you. And Rikishi then turns his attention to Austin. And Rikishi tells Austin that he better keep Too Cool out of his mouth. He doesn't like the way that Austin has been mocking and running down Too Cool in recent weeks. And he says, if you say it one more time, you're going to have a problem, is what Rikishi says. And so Angle just says, well, hang on a second. Like, you wait just a minute. And Rikishi, starts looking at Angle, and he steps up to Angle. But then Austin kind of stands there and says, ho, 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 whoa, 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 whoa. Austin says, you're not going to intimidate my partner like that. And so Austin kind of buying into the team here with Kurt Angle. And he just says, how about this? I'll say too cool, too cool, too cool all I want. Because why don't we do this, Commissioner Regal? Austin says, why don't we have a match tonight? The new tag team champions, Stone Cold Steve Austin and Kurt Angle. And Angle's kind of lighting up here because, hey, you heard Steve Austin call him, one half of the tag team champions. Austin says, why don't we defend our championships in Kurt Angle's hometown, Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, against Too Cool? So Austin suggesting a tag team championship match tonight. He and Kurt Angle against Too Cool. And Regal approves of the match. And Rikishi just kind of nods his head here, maybe thinking he's going to figure something out with this match. So Austin and Angle are going to defend the tag team championships in our main event against Too Cool here in Pittsburgh. 81 for the segment. Rikishi comes out not looking good. That's okay, but we had to align him here with what was going on. All right. We get an announcement on commentary. We're going to have a number one contenders match at Judgment Day. Trish Stratus versus Lita. The winner will take on Chyna for the women's title. So that is your setup. We get an announcement here for that, 75. And the reason why is because we're going to actually get to a match here. It is going to be Trish and Lita teaming up. They're both baby faces this time. So they team up here against Ivory and Terry, and it is Trish and Lita getting the win. Lita pins Terry Reynolds after the moonsault. So not much more to add other than that. I mentioned the women's division is just a slow burn here. It will get there. We're just not there yet. But that's kind of, your setup here for that. So Trish and Lita get the win. They're going to face each other at Judgment Day with a shot at Chyna and the women's title on the line. 45 for this one. All right. There's more to come. So Angle's talking to Regal about, everything that's gone on here in the history of Pittsburgh and his impact on this great city. And Angle then says, that Rikishi, did you think that guy stinks? He stinks. He walks up to you. He's got his ass hanging out, and Angle says, maybe I should give Rikishi a stink face tonight. What do you think about that? I drink a lot of milk. And that's what Angle tells Regal. And then Regal just says, Kurt, I think that's a great idea. But I'll tell you what I enjoyed from this last hour. That's seeing Chris Jericho being taken out in handcuffs after the beating we gave him last week. He has no chance. And I've actually decided that I don't want to just beat Chris Jericho at Judgment Day. He wants a matchup against me, he'll get it. But I don't want to just beat him. I don't want to pin him 1, 2, 3. I want to make him submit. I want to see him at my mercy, is what Regal says. So we're going to have a submission match at Judgment Day. Me and Chris Jericho. And we'll see who's going to be the person crying over this or that, like Jericho's been crying over the past several weeks about losing to me at Backlash. He's going to lose to me again at Judgment Day. This time, he's going to say he quits. So, Regal has made a match here. It'll be Regal and Jericho Judgment Day submission match. But then when walks Raven. You're wondering why Raven is here. Well, Raven walks in, and Regal just says, thank you, Mr. Raven. I requested your presence here because, and before Regal can continue, Kurt Angle says, hold on a second. You stink. And Angle looks at Raven and tells him that he stinks. And Raven gets up in Angle's face here, and Regal just says, hold on. Regal says, you're here because I was giving a directive. He says, I was given a directive, Raven, by Mr. McMahon. And Regal says, you must now face an opponent of Mr. McMahon's choosing. I just got off the phone with Mr. McMahon. And Raven's like, wait a minute, why me? What are you talking about? What do I have to do with this? And Regal's like, I cannot give you that answer. All I know is you are to head to the ring right now to face an opponent of Mr. McMahon's choosing. And Angle's just over here holding his nose, once again stating that Raven stinks, all this other stuff. And so that's your setup here. 59 for this one. And it is going to be Raven in action. Why Raven? We don't know. But we do get to the match, and who is the opponent? It's the Big Show. As the Big Show comes out, and still kind of your stoic Big Show here, he comes out and just completely takes it to Raven right from the start. We see kind of the aggression turn up from Big Show here. He's been in a very unhappy mood, as we know, really since we started the save. Something's still going on with Vince McMahon. We don't know what it is. But Big Show was the opponent of Vince's choosing here, and he beats Raven. And that was kind of it. We did do storytelling on this one because, again, that's kind of the story, is that Big Show comes out, all business here, and just destroys Raven. That's kind of the story we're telling. So 53 for this one. Poor Raven. Man, wonder why he's getting beat up like this. All right, 53 for this one. All right, so then we get another match official for Judgment Day. Like I said, this card's coming together pretty quickly here. It's going to be a tables match, as it'll be the Dudleys versus XFactor, 6-man tag team match, a tables match at Judgment Day based on everything we've seen. Again, Albert interferes earlier in Spike Dudley's match. So that is official. So the card's starting to shape up nicely here for Judgment Day. 48 here for this one. All right, now there's more. So we get Austin and Angle back together. They're back here, and Regal's there. And then, as they're standing there, Regal's like, don't worry, we're about to do it right now. And Austin just asking Regal about the plan, and Regal says, yep, we're about to take care of it. So we're backstage. They're walking around. Security's around them, and they go up and they find Rikishi again. So it's Rikishi there with Too Cool, and what happens? Regal tells security, please remove Mr. Rikishi from the building. Also, just to make sure, let's maybe put him in some handcuffs, is what Regal says. I'm sorry, Rikishi's getting pissed off here, like, what are you talking about? And he's trying to think about fighting off the security, but again, there's so many of these guys and police officers and security that they're putting Rikishi in handcuffs now. And Rikishi's getting pissed off. Angle's laughing at him. Austin's getting up in his face, taunting him. And so that is kind of your setup here, is that the Tag Team Championship match is made, Austin versus Angle, but just like The Undertaker, just like Kane, just like Chris Jericho, Rikishi getting hauled out of here in handcuffs, all by the orders of Vince McMahon. So Rikishi's out of here, and that leaves Austin and Angle kind of staring down Too Cool here as we kind of set up, this main event match tonight. So 76 here for this one. All right, now we get to a big 8-man tag team match, as it is the Hardy Boys and the APA, who we saw kind of have a little connection last week after it was sort of revealed that the Hardys had, hired the APA to get the European Championship back from Eddie Guerrero, who had stolen it away from Matt. But it is the Hardys and APA getting the win over Right to Censor here, as, Farouk gets the pin on Steven Richards with the Dominator. So Jeff head and shoulders above everybody else, not bad. But I'm okay this got a 60. I'm a little surprised. These guys not real over, as we know, but these guys teaming together, they get the victory. But it's more about them getting the win here and, kind of being connected here. But what happens afterward? Well, we go to the back as the camera looks backstage. These guys are celebrating in the ring. And, well, it is Eddie Guerrero, who still has the European Championship, and Edge and Christian, and they are sitting there in the APA office, right, where they play cards and all this other stuff. The beer is there. And what do they decide to do? They're like, hey, guys, we're back here. Why don't you come get us? And before they do that, they just start trashing the APA's office here. This very well-designed, well-put-together office has been trashed by Eddie, Edge, and Christian. So they trash it, and then, we see these guys make a beeline for the back, but we see that, them kind of run away as that starts to happen. So the thought is they're not going to be able to actually find, Edge, Christian, and Eddie here, but they trash the APA office, so more heat here for this one. Eddie's still getting penalized for the personal issues, but it is what it is. Eddie underperforms here, 72. I'll still take that for this segment. All right, now, it's kind of our last big talking segment of the night. I know, again, this is a very talk-heavy show, but we need to push some things on this show. So, Austin is sitting there with Kurt Angle, and they're getting ready for their match. It's about to come up shortly, and that is when Austin is kind of in the Vince McMahon role here, where he's sitting. It's the same visual like you had Vince sitting with Austin last week. It's the same thing. Austin is in Vince's side, Angle's on Austin's side, like we kind of have that same setup. And Austin says, Kurt, you've been talking about Too Cool for weeks and weeks now. I've been tired of listening about it, but you're now one half of the tag team champions. You have a reputation to uphold here in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. Austin says, I'm not losing these tag team championships tonight. I'm not losing them to Too Cool, Grandmaster Sexay, and Scotty 2 Hotty. They're not taking these championships away from Stone Cold Steve Austin. And so Austin says, here's what I need from you, Kurt. I need the old Kurt Angle. Austin says, I need the guy who broke his freaking neck to win a gold medal. And Austin says, and Angle's getting fired up here, right? Just like Austin did last week when Vince started talking to him. So Austin says, that's what I need, Kurt. I don't want to lose these championships tonight. And Austin says, so I'm going to make a suggestion to you. Just like last week, Vince McMahon suggested that I go find the old Stone Cold. Austin says, I think you should go break your freaking neck before this match to get yourself ready. And Angle's looking around like, well, hang on a second, Steve. I don't know if I should go break my neck. Go break your neck, Austin says. I want you ready. The old Kurt Angle tonight. Too Cool, Grandmaster Sexay, Scotty 2 Hotty, Tag Team Championships. And Angle says, all right, Steve, all right. Angle says, I'm an Olympic hero. I'll never lose these Tag Team Championships. And Angle just starts sort of, hitting himself in the face and all this other stuff. And Austin says, get the hell out of here. Go break your neck, son. So Austin is just giving an inspirational speech to Kurt Angle before the big WWF Tag Team Championship match tonight against Too Cool. 88 here for the segment. All right, and then we get Too Cool with Michael Cole, who continues to not really give us a whole lot. But 47, a little bit of a drastic difference here, but it is Too Cool. We're hyping them up for this tag team title match as they, Michael Cole just says, guys, we saw your partner Rikishi get hauled out of here in handcuffs just like the Undertaker, Kane, and Chris Jericho. Cole just says, what's your game plan going into this match against Stone Cold Steve Austin and Kurt Angle? And we just see, these two guys in a little bit of a foul mood here. They're not in their playful mood as usual. And they just, again, are kind of taking aim at Austin and Angle here saying, We want those tag team championships. We've been embarrassed by these two, Kurt Angle, Steve Austin. We're going to shock the world tonight here in Pittsburgh. We're taking the championships from Austin and Angle. So, yeah, a little bit of a more serious edge here from Grandmaster Sexay and Scotty 2 Hotty as they prepare for the tag team championship match. Our main event, 47 for the segment, and in our main event, 82. Here for this one, Too Cool come up short, as it is Stone Cold Steve Austin and Kurt Angle getting the win over Grandmaster Sexay and Too Cool. We tried to build it up as the improbable upset. Could it happen? But it couldn't. Just too much against the baby faces here. Too many things stacked against them. Stone Cold Steve Austin hits the stunner on Grandmaster Sexay to retain the championships. Our first defense for our champions, Kurt Angle and Steve Austin. Austin head and shoulders above everyone else. I wouldn't say head and shoulders. 91 for an in-ring performance. Angle had an 81. But a pretty good stuff here. 82. So they retain the championships, right? But as they are celebrating, so we have Austin and Angle celebrating their championship defense. Regal's out there, kind of, again, cheering them on. Here comes The Undertaker, Kane, and Chris Jericho. Now, there is still some security out here. We were been ordered to follow these guys around the rest of the night. That is Austin, Angle, and Regal. But how did The Undertaker, Jericho, and Kane get out of being held by security and the police? Well, we don't know, but here they come. And they are making their way, and Angle, Austin, and Regal realize, we may be in trouble here, because the security has kind of been spread out throughout the night, as some of them have kind of, again, a good batch of security went with Taker, Jericho, and Kane. Some had to haul off Rikishi. Didn't leave as many to protect Austin, Angle, and Regal. So now Taker, Jericho, and Kane are able to wipe out these security guards that are left, and the police officers, they've gone through, and now we've got a full-on brawl, right? It is Taker, Kane, and Jericho hauling off with Austin, Angle, and Regal. And so they're hauling off on each other. We can still tell Kane favoring a little bit from that attack from last week that he took via the hands of Austin and Angle, but he's a big red machine, right? So the monster is back here, and so they're brawling, and it is Taker, Kane, and Jericho getting the upper hand on these three, 79 for the segment. But the biggest part comes afterwards, figuratively and literally, as they get the upper hand on Austin, Angle, and Regal. Here comes Rikishi, who was also hauled out of this thing, as it was Rikishi who was hauled out by the police as well and the officials not long ago, but now he's back, and now Rikishi comes out. Austin is down, Regal is down, Angle is there. He takes the choke slam from The Undertaker, also takes a choke slam from Kane. Then what do? They put him in the corner as they see Rikishi making his way out, and Rikishi gets in the ring, and it is Rikishi who gives Kurt Angle the stink face to finish this edition of WWF Raw is War in his hometown, Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. Kurt Angle celebrated like an Olympic hero after retaining the championship that he had just been given by Vince McMahon, and he ends the night getting a stink face from Rikishi in the corner. So that is how we finish up this episode. Commentary's losing and saying, what is Kurt Angle going to do after taking the stink face? Taker's got the upper hand on Austin. Jericho got the upper hand on Regal. And that is how we go off this edition of WWF Raw is War 73. So not the best numbers in the show, but nonetheless, it's okay. So we are kind of going to officially turn Rikishi face here. He'd been listed as a heel based on everything before the comeback with Too Cool. But we make it official here, which we already knew was going to happen. So let's go ahead and make that turn. So Rikishi officially on the face side as he gets ready for that match with Kurt Angle at Judgment Day. So 73 for this one, Kurt Angle. A stink face in his hometown. 87 for the show. We'll take that for sure. A lot of big segments. And again, guys, I know this was a longer show, but we had a lot to kind of build up in terms of the characters, the story. There's a lot that we're trying to build before we get to Judgment Day, and this was kind of one of those shows we really had to pack with a lot of different things before we get there. So there you go. 87 for the show, one of our best shows so far. We increase our popularity in 22 regions. We'll take that. Big developments, we said, especially with the main event scene. We look at our financial report, $855,000. Pittsburgh brought it tonight with a big product, $368,000 in ticket sales. Tremendous stuff there. So our finances doing just fine. We knew that. Popularity recap, we did, again, gain a little bit, back, it seems. We knew that was going to happen, so great show. But there you go. Let's see what else we need to get to before we wrap up. All right, so that was Raw. Awesome show. Fantastic reviews. That's what we want. Looks like we got New Japan and AAA here going to war. CMLL also joining in on that, so good to see those. They're kind of already taken off. D'Lo Brown also getting married. Congratulations to D'Lo and his partner here at a private ceremony attended by friends and family. I was not there. But let's see what we can get to mail-wise. Oh, no opinions from Kurt Angle this week. That's great. So at least Kurt, he may not have anything to say after taking the stink face. Maybe in the shower. D'Lo, again, marries Juventud. We had the Hoovy. The Hoovy juice is on our short list, so that's why that's there. Raw gets a 6.45 rating. My goodness, 4.8 million viewers. Incredible. I don't know if we've looked through these. Maybe we did or maybe we haven't. 0.44 rating for Sunday Night Heat, 333,000. 6.98 for SmackDown. So SmackDown, the old Stone Cold came back, and we got a great rating for that. 5.2 million viewers there for SmackDown. So there you go, guys. That was Raw. Hope you enjoyed that episode. As I said, it was a little bit longer, a lot more talking, a lot more story points, but we need that here as we continue this save and head towards Judgment Day, our first pay-per-view. So appreciate you guys watching as always. Be sure to hit the subscribe button, hit the like button as well. Share. A lot of fun stuff we're doing here in this save. And again, I will probably get some new saves in the rotation at some point soon, but we're really kind of having some fun with this one. And so I want to kind of stay focused on this for now. But there will be some more interesting, maybe new saves in the works at some point soon. May go back to doing one of like the real world saves. I know we did the WWE there for a while. I'm not as completely sold on doing that with WWE right now because I just think WWE is working pretty well in reality. And so it doesn't really give me as much incentive to want to do that necessarily with this because I think it's kind of hard to top some of the stuff WWE is doing in reality right now. AEW may be a little bit different because I think there are some things you could change with that. So that could be an interesting save maybe we consider. But we'll see. It's still a lot of fun stuff to look at. And I know some other mods in terms of like, other periods, 1992, which we had going in TEW 2020. Those kind of things are still intriguing to me. I'd even like to find one. If any of you guys know one out there, like the late 80s, I'd love to do a late 80s type save. And I know that may not be for everyone, but that was just, I always found that very fascinating, kind of with, all the characters and such from the late 80s and the golden age and everything. So I'd like to entertain that idea too, but we'll see what it gets to. But again, guys, I appreciate you watching as always. Let me know your thought on this particular Raw and on the next episode of our WWF Invasion 2001 save. It'll be SmackDown, the go-home edition before Judgment Day.